Hey guys, welcome to lesson 12 where we're going to be doing a couple more loops that we're going to learn about. The first one we're going to learn about is the while loop, and the second one we're going to be learning about is the do while loop. So I'm going ahead and making my 2312, my new project, and my new class within that project. So I'm going to put in my comment block, author, date, okay. All right, so I'm going to set up our skeleton for the while loop. So it's going to be while, and then open and close parentheses. That's where our arguments are going to go. And then we're going to have an open parentheses and a close parentheses. God, don't you just love Eclipse because it puts in your brackets for you and it lines them all up. It's so useful. Okay, so you guys remember that project that we did where we summed all the numbers from 3 to 79. We're going to do the same thing we're going to do with the while loop instead of a for loop. So above your while loop, we're going to initialize sum, and we're going to declare sum and then initialize it equal to 0, so that starts at 0, and then it adds on from there. And make sure it's outside of your loop, so that way it won't be out of the scope whenever we need it outside the loop. All right, so remember in for loops, we have the initializing expression within the parameters of our loop. So that's not going to be the same for a while loop. So you need to come up here and we're going to say int j equals 3. So it's just like what we did in that other program. So we're going to say initializing expression not inside loop. All right, so now we're going to put our control expression, and you will notice there's no semicolon after the while. So anything that's starting a loop does not get a semicolon after it. So no fors, no ifs, no whiles. All right, so we're going to put in our control expression. So I'm going to make a note to myself over here, make a little remark, and say control expression set in loop. Okay, and remember in our other program we added every number between 3 and 79. So there's two ways you can do that. You can say, well, j is less than or equal to 79. It'll execute our loop. Or you don't even have to say it's less than or equal to. You can say j is less than 80 because 79 is less than 80, but 80 is not less than 80. So I'm going to leave it as j less than or equal to 79, but you can do whatever keeps your boat afloat. All right, so now we're going to finally come inside of our loop and we're going to tell it what to go. By the way, for while loops, the only thing that goes inside this argument here is the control expression. So remember for loops, there was initializing expression, the control expression, and the step. The step this time is going to have to go inside the loop because it's not part of our control expression. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep a running tally of our sum. So every time we hit sum is going to be equal to whatever the sum was before plus j. So if j is 3, we come down here, 3 is less than 79, so it says sum, which is 0, is equal to 0 plus 3. So sum is now 3. Now what we need to do, we have initializing, we have control, and now we need to put together our step expression. So hit enter. And we need to do j plus plus with a semicolon. So now it comes through here. J is now 4. The loop repeats, and the only way it's going to get out of that loop is when j is greater than 79. So now to make sure it prints correctly, let's do a system.out.println. Make sure it's outside of your while loop. We want to see what the sum is. So it looks like we have no errors, so let's run it. 3,157, just what we got from the for loop. Okay, so that is our basic while loop. So go ahead and I'm going to put our while expression, actually just our while expression, And I'm going to put that, so remember it's Control Shift backspace, and make that a comment block. And just above it, I'm going to put while loop example, just so that we come back, we know what was going on. So we're still going to use that int sum and that int j3. We're still going to use this system out print sum. So those are all things we're actually going to need, because we're going to write a very similar program, but we're going to write it in a do while loop now. Okay, so I'm going to put in a comment line here and I'm going to say do while loop, just so we know. All right, so the way that you set up your bare bones skeleton for a do while loop is you have do, and then you come down, you have your open and close parentheses, your arguments are going to go in there, or your code for the do while loop is going to go in there, and then you're going to come below the do loop, outside of the brackets, have while, open and close parentheses, and then you're going to put a semicolon here. So before, we don't use a semicolon on that while loop, but we do for a do while loop. And this expression inside this while is going to be a Boolean. So your response is either going to be true or false. All right, so the while loop is going to be set just like before. So j less than or equal to 79, or just j less than 80, whichever you want to put in there. And inside your do loop, we're going to say sum equals sum plus j and j plus plus. All right, so let's run this. 3,157 works just fine. So the question you might be asking yourself is, what is the difference between a while loop and a do while loop? Why would you even need to know that there's different loops? All right, so if you look at your while loop, first of all, so for a while loop, what happens, I'm going to tab all this business over just so it kind of looks a little more consistent. Okay, so for a while loop, what happens is it tests this Boolean, this j less than or equal to 79, right here, right away. So if it's 80, it does not even go through the loop at all. So basically, if j is 80, it's going to skip this entire part of code. Now, with a do while loop, it's going to, and j is 80, it's going to say sum equals sum plus 80, make it 81, and then it's going to hit this while loop. So basically, it's going to run all of the code every single time until it hits this line. So basically, your big difference is your while loop can be skipped, whereas the do while loop will be executed at least once. All right, so I just commented out our do while loop, and I'm going to uncomment out our while loop. So we're going to take another quick look at this. So I know I just put all that format in there, and now I'm going to take it out. Just can't seem to make up my mind. Okay, so now we're going to look at breaks within the loop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and I'm going to write an if statement. I'm going to say if j is equal to 65. So remember, this is a Boolean. It is either 65 or it isn't, not 75, 65. And then within that expression, we're going to tell it to do something. So we're going to say j plus plus, and then we're going to tell it to break. So what happens here? We're inside the while loop. It's not 65. It executes the rest of that while code and keeps going back and doing it over and over again. Then when j is 65, it's going to come in here, it's going to increase by 1, and it's going to break, meaning we shoot out of the code. But since it's j plus plus, it's going to increment up to 66 when it breaks. All right, so go ahead and run your code. 2077. So if you added all the numbers between 3 and 65, it would give you 2077. All right, so you guys are about to learn a new way, a new escape. So instead of break, we're going to put in continue. So what continue does? We go in here and j is 65. J increases to 66 and then hits continue. It shoots you to the end of that loop, and then it tests the loop again to see if it works. So it's still less than 60, or still less than 79, because it's 66. So basically, the continue skips the rest of the code until it hits the bottom of the loop, and then repeats the loop. So since we have continue in here, it's increasing to 66, but that is never going to be added into this sum. So let's go ahead and run our code. 3092. So it is 65 less because that 65 never gets added into our sum. So the difference between break and continue is break cancels anything else you were doing with the loop and skips the rest of the loop entirely. With continue, it skips to the end of the loop and then repeats it. All right, and the thing with the brackets that we talked about for the if statement, how if you don't have brackets on this do while loop or on this underneath do, it would just execute that first line as part of the loop and then move on. So it's the same thing for do while and while as it was for the ifs and the fors. All right, good luck with lesson 12. You do not have a project for this one, but you do have some questions.